You want to know who someone really is? Don't look at their LinkedIn profile. Don't listen to their stories about themselves. Don't even watch how they treat their equals. Carl Jung discovered something unsettling about human nature. We're all performing, all the time, wearing what he called personas, masks so convincing that we often fool ourselves. But there are moments, specific situations, where the mask slips and the true character emerges like a creature from the deep. Jung understood that character isn't what someone shows you at dinner parties. It's what leaks out when they think no one's watching, when they're too stressed to perform, when the cost of maintaining their image becomes too high. He identified specific tests, not manipulative games, but observations of natural moments where the unconscious self overrides the conscious performance. The first test is devastatingly simple. Watch how they treat people who can do nothing for them, not just waiters and service workers. Everyone knows that test. I'm talking about the deeper version. How do they treat the boring colleague at the office party? The unattractive person trying to join their conversation? The old man moving too slowly in the crosswalk? When there's absolutely nothing to gain, no audience to impress, no benefit to extract, no network to build, who do they become? I watched this play out at a conference where a prominent CEO was working the room, all charm and charisma with anyone important. Then a janitor accidentally knocked over his coffee. For just a second, before he remembered people were watching, his face showed pure disgust, not at the spill, at the janitor, at having to acknowledge this person existed. He recovered quickly, laughed it off, even helped clean up. But that split second revealed more than years of polished speeches ever could. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, repress, hide from the world. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It waits, and in moments of pressure or perceived insignificance, it emerges. The person who couldn't maintain their persona with unimportant people is showing you that their kindness is transactional, their respect is calculated, their humanity is performed. The second test: give them power over someone vulnerable, not massive power, just a little. Make them the team lead on a project. Put them in charge of planning something. Give them the ability to include or exclude others. Power doesn't corrupt. It reveals. It shows you who someone was all along, just waiting for permission to emerge. Jung observed that when people gain even small amounts of power, their unconscious desires surface. The person who is bullied becomes the bully. The one who felt excluded becomes the gatekeeper. Or sometimes, beautifully, the person who suffered becomes the protector. Power removes the need for the persona. Why maintain the mask when you read the one in charge? And what emerges is either shadow or genuine character. Here's one that's brutal in its accuracy. Watch them when they're losing. Not just losing a game or an argument. Losing something they really wanted. The promotion they were certain they'd get. The relationship they thought was forever. The recognition they believed they deserved. Loss strips away the persona faster than anything else, because the ego is too wounded to maintain pretense. I knew two colleagues up for the same position. When the first one didn't get it, he congratulated the winner publicly, then spent months subtly undermining her, spreading rumors that the process was unfair, that she played politics. When she didn't get a different promotion later, she genuinely mentored her competition, even recommended him for opportunities. Loss revealed who each of them really was beneath their professional personas. Jung identified another powerful test. Introduce chaos into their ordered world. Miss a deadline that affects them. Change plans at the last minute. Make a mistake that inconveniences them. Don't do this deliberately to test them. Just observe when life naturally creates these moments. How someone handles disruption when they can't prepare their response reveals their true flexibility, empathy, and emotional regulation. The person who says they're easygoing but loses their mind when dinner reservations fall through. They're performing relaxation, but they're actually rigid. The one who claims they're supportive but couldn't handle when you need to cancel plans. They're performing care, but it's conditional on convenience. Want to see someone's real values? Watch what they do when the choice costs them something. Anyone can be generous with surplus. Anyone can be ethical when it's easy. But when being honest means losing money, when being loyal means missing an opportunity, when being kind means sacrificing comfort, that is, when you see what someone actually values versus what they claim to value. Jung knew that we all have what he called a superior function, our dominant way of engaging with the world, and an austere function, the part of our psychology we've neglected or suppressed. Under stress, people flip into their inferior function, and it's usually not pretty. The normally logical person becomes irrationally emotional. The typically feeling-oriented person becomes cold and cutting. These flips reveal the parts of themselves they've never integrated, never developed, never admitted existed. Here's a subtle but powerful test. Disagree with them about something they care about. Not aggressively, not disrespectfully. Just hold a different opinion and stick to it. Watch what happens. Do they become curious about your perspective? Do they try to convince you? Do they dismiss you? Do they take it personally? How someone handles genuine disagreement shows you whether their confidence is real or manufactured, whether their respect for others survives difference. The money test is classic Jung. It's not about how much someone has, but how they relate to it. Watch what happens when the check comes at a group dinner, when they find money on the street, when a cashier gives them too much change, when they have to split something unevenly. Money triggers the shadow because it represents survival, status, power, security, all the primal concerns the persona tries to civilize. I watched a woman who constantly talked about abundance and generosity carefully calculate her portion of a shared Uber to the penny, then forget to send the $3.47 she owed. Another friend who never discusses money quietly covered a colleague's groceries when their card was declined, never mentioning it again. Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. Jung's most uncomfortable insight was this: watch how they treat people who love them unconditionally. It's easy to be wonderful to people whose affection you're trying to win. But the people who already love you? Parents, old friends, devoted partners. That's where the real character test lies. Do they take that love for granted? Do they save their worst behavior for those who won't leave? Or do they treat secured love as more precious, not less? The exhaustion test might be the most revealing, not normal tiredness. Bone-deep, sustained exhaustion. The kind that comes from weeks of stress, illness, or overwhelming responsibility. When someone is too tired to perform, too drained to maintain their mask, you see their baseline character. Some people become cruel when exhausted. Others become more tender. Some become selfish. Others more generous. Exhaustion doesn't create character. It reveals what was always there, waiting beneath the energy required to perform. Watch them around someone more successful in their field. Do they celebrate or diminish? Do they learn or compete? Do they network or undermine? Jung understood that how we relate to others' success reveals our relationship with our own shadow. The parts of ourselves we've disowned get projected onto others, either as excessive admiration or irrational hatred. Here's one nobody expects. Watch them with animals, not just pets, any animals. The person who needs to dominate a dog, who gets angry at a cat for not responding, who shows disgust at creatures they deem gross. Animals don't care about your persona. They respond to your energy, your authentic emotional state. How someone relates to beings that can't be impressed by performance shows you how they relate to vulnerability itself. The group dynamics test is fascinating. Put them in a group where they're not the smartest, richest, or most attractive, where they can't be the center of attention, where their usual performance doesn't land. Do they sulk, compete, withdraw? Or do they find genuine interest in others? Can they be a supporting player, or do they need to be the star? Jung believed the ultimate test was what he called confrontation with the self, moments when someone faces who they really are versus who they pretend to be. These moments come naturally. Seeing an unflattering photo, overhearing how others describe them, facing legitimate criticism, catching themselves in a lie. Watch what happens in that moment of recognition. Do they attack the mirror, deny the reflection, or do they pause, consider, integrate? The test of someone's reaction to your success is particularly telling. Not strangers, people who claim to care about you. When something wonderful happens to you, what flickers across their face before they compose their reaction? Joy? Envy? Calculation about what it means for them. That split second before the persona kicks in tells you everything about how they really see you. But here's what Jung knew that makes all of this complex. We all failing these tests sometimes. We all have shadows, inferior functions, moments where our personas crack. The difference isn't between people with shadows and people without them. It's between people who acknowledge their shadows and those who don't. People who work to integrate their dark sides and those who project them onto others. The real test of character isn't the absence of shadow, but the relationship with it. Does this person know their own darkness? Do they take responsibility for it? When their mask slips, do they blame others or examine themselves? Can they admit their failures in these moments, or do they need to maintain the persona even when it's clearly cracked? As you observe others through these lenses, remember Jung's warning. What disturbs you most in others often reflects your own shadow. The tests that reveal others' characters also reveal your own. The moments when you judge others harshly might be the moments when you're re-seeing your own disowned parts reflected back. The ultimate test of character, Jung would say, isn't any single moment but the pattern over time. Can this person grow? Can they integrate their shadow? Can they become more whole? Or are they stuck in their persona, defending it against all evidence, unable to face who they really are? Watch, observe, notice, but most importantly, apply these same tests to yourself. Because character isn't about being perfect, it's about being conscious. It's about knowing your shadows, owning your projections, and taking responsibility for who you are when the mask comes off. That's the paradox Jung understood. The more you face your own shadow, the less you need to test others' characters. You see them clearly because you see yourself clearly. You recognize their shadows because you know your own. And in that recognition lies both the most accurate assessment of character and the most compassionate understanding of what it means to be human.